Have you got the quest cape, but wonder what even happened during the quests? Maybe you used the quest helper plugin or watched Slayer Musique's guides and spacebarred through all of the dialogue just to get the quests done as quickly as possible, and now you want a quick and easy way to know the lore of the game. Well, I've got good news for you. In this video, all the Grandmaster quests in Old School RuneScape are summarized and presented by order of their release date, starting with Monkey Madness 2. To start this quest you must have completed Death Plateau, Troll Stronghold, Enlightened Journey, Watchtower, the Eyes of Guthix, Tree Gnome Village, the Grand Tree, Monkey Madness 1 and Recipe for Disaster. Despite having Gluth under close surveillance, he has managed to escape the stronghold. Perhaps you can find something in his home. You find a handkerchief with the initials AA embroidered into it and you go to Anita's house. She's crying, thinking that Gluth might be seeing someone else as she hasn't seen him in a while. She heard a noise in his home and tried to climb as quick as she could, but he was gone. There's an even higher level in Gluth's house. You search the crates and find a brush, and in the fire remains you find a half-burned note. You turn the statue, hearing a clicking sound. In the cupboard you find a book on spycraft and learn a method of writing hidden messages. First you grind a lemon and apply it to the parchment, then hold it over some light heat, like some candles, and the juice of some ripe grapes is brushed over the parchment, making the notes visible again. Finding the hidden text, it is written in a strange language. King Narno Shireen hands you a translation book and you ask Anita to complete the translation for you. What's written is, "It took some persuading, but the monk has finally showed me the route. I have managed to find a replacement pilot to fill my post while we are away. At dawn we head to," and the rest of the note is burnt. It appears that Gluth had help escaping. The only pilot that's been released recently is Laurie, who took over LeSmith's post as balloon pilot. She directs you to August, who recently taught LeSmith a very dangerous route that no one had ever attempted to do before, to Apatol. You update the king. Fortunately, the rest of the 10th squad had remained on Apatol after the previous mission to keep a close eye on our Wogge. You are reassigned to go to Apatol and are to report to Sergeant Garkor for further orders. On Apatol, you buy a monkey talisman for 1,000 coins and see Garkor. The 10th squad haven't sighted Gluth on Apatol yet, but there has been a lot of strange activity. Disguised as a monkey, you speak with our Wogge to see if you can find out more information, but he says he only discusses this with his generals. He's meant to be meeting one now, but he's late, so he sends you to get Kruk. Garkor suggests that you make a monkey gree from Kruk's remains so you can infiltrate. One of the monkey archers informs you that Kruk has been leaving his post a lot lately. You find some footprints in the dirt leading down the western ramp, and a bit south of the gnome glider you find a trapdoor to Kruk's dungeon. You make your way around the dungeon, carefully walking around the dodgy ground to not fall down, jumping across some pressure pads and rope swinging across some chasms. You make your way across a large field of dodgy ground, eventually finding a chest with a bronze key in it, unlocking a bronze door before the key snaps. After finding your path and crossing the final obstacles, you reach the last section of dodgy ground where you can investigate the wall and find a hidden passage to the entrance, memorizing its location so you can quickly access the end of the dungeon whenever you need. You can flinch Kruk on a corner and then you get his paw. You make your way to Zooknok at the end of the Apatol dungeon, and he makes the Kruk monkey Gree. Now disguised as Kruk, you go back to our Wogge and learn that the monkeys are planning a three-way assault with an alliance between the ogres and the trolls. Plus they're working on a new fleet of battleships and are also developing a secret weapon. You update Garkor on their plan. Now you have to try to convince the trolls and the ogres not to join the monkeys. At the troll stronghold you try to persuade Cobb not to attack the humans alongside the monkeys and challenge him to a duel. If you win, they'll call off the attack, and if they win, they will attack the humans. Just before he dies, he calls off the attack, and then you make your way to Gutanov and pay the ogre guard 20 coins so you can jump over the bridge and speak to Chief Keith. Once again you ask him to end his alliance with the monkeys and challenge him to a duel to the death. With that, the ogres are no longer in alliance with the monkeys too. You update Garkor. In the meantime, he's heard that LeSmith has appeared on Apatol. You explore until you find him. As you're disguised as the monkey general, he reveals that the fleet of airships are being built off the coast of Apatol. So now you've got to find where the airships are and destroy them if possible. On the western side of the island you find a monkey guard near a rowboat. He takes you to the platform and you make your way around a maze of crates, avoiding the line of sight of the monkey guards. Climbing and descending ladders until you find a crate with satchels, which you then fill 6 of them with gunpowder from a barrel. Then you find some compromised floorboards, a compromised support and a gas cylinder, and you strap down the satchels of explosives on them before leaving, bringing down the entire platform, escaping from the explosion as you row away. You update Garkor saying that you've destroyed the airships. Unfortunately, he has found in Crux Dungeon a secret facility where they're developing a secret weapon, protected by a magical barrier. Back in the dungeon, in monkey form, you swing across the monkey bars above the pit of spikes, and find a small crevice. Inside is a laboratory with demonic gorillas. You climb on one of them and make your way down the stairs. As the experiments have broken out of their cage again, Glove tells you to get them back under control before they destroy any more of his work. So you fight the tortured gorillas until they go back into their cage. Glove's been working on a mutagen which allows for control over the creatures. Whilst keeping them aggressive enough to tear anything apart that stands in their way, he thinks he's found the right balance, but he wants to carry out some final tests. He doesn't currently have a huge army, but once he makes the mutagen airborne, he will unleash it on all of Apatol. All that's missing is for the mutagen to infuse its power with the charged onyx gems. Glove goes out to look for Assistant LeSmith. You tamper with the device and remove the gem from the glowing orb. You use the chisel and hammer to deconstruct it, and the flow of energy is inverted, reversing the effect of the mutagen. You then investigate the incubation chambers, and it seems that the mutagen has been successfully corrupted. You then update Garkor and Awawoge on how their plan is failing. The trolls and the ogres have backed out of the alliance, the fleet of airships will not be ready for the attack, and the secret weapon mutagen has been compromised. Just as Awawoge calls off the attack on the mainland, an explosion happens. There was still an airship. Glove and LeSmith set course for the Grand Tree to end this once and for all. You update King Narnode, warning him that Glove is coming on an airship with demonic experiments. You talk to Neve, saying that you need her assistance in fighting the demonic gorillas. The airship crashes north of the Grand Tree. You defeat 4 tortured gorillas and go north of the breach. Glove sets the tortured gorillas, who can switch attack styles, against you and Neve. After you defeat them, he takes a sample of the mutagen for himself and he kills Neve, leaving the dust of the Elysian Spirit Shield. Then you fight him in 3 phases. After a long and heroic battle, you defeat Glove, and the cave starts collapsing, so Zooknok teleports you out. You tell him that Neve couldn't make it, but Glove is no longer a problem. You update King Narnode too. King Awawoge wants to set up an agreement of peace between Apatol and the mainland. Awawoge thanks you for foiling Glove's plans. There is now a glider route to Marin, and you can get a bonus XP reward from Duke, the head of the Apatol Guard. You are rewarded with 80,000 Slayer, 60,000 Agility, 50,000 Thieving, and 50,000 Hunter XP. You now have access to the demonic gorillas, and are given a Royal Seed Pod to teleport to the Grand Tree. 2 bonus sets of 50,000 XP in a combat skill of your choice, except Prayer, are given after some intense training with Duke. Dragon Slayer 2. To start this quest you must have completed Client of Karen, Bone Voyage, Ghost Ahoy, Animal Magnetism, A Tale of Two Cats, Dream Mentor, Dragon Slayer 1 and Legends Quest. Alec Kincaid of the Myths Guild wants to learn more about dragons. If you can help him fill their library of knowledge, he will grant you access to the Myths Guild, and you can reap the rewards within. He directs you to the Karamja pub to speak with Dallas Jones, who's investigating the destruction of Crandor. You find him as he's about to investigate Elvarg's lair, and you tell him that you're the one who slayed the dragon. He explains that 30 years ago, Crandor used to be a thriving island until one day an adventurer discovered the dragon Elvarg and accidentally awakened her from her sleep. It made short work of the adventurer and emerged from the cave to lay waste to the entire island. Now that Elvarg's dead, Dallas Jones can research her lair. The fact that Elvarg lived alone is an anomaly among dragons. They tend to live in large groups. You see some blockage on the wall and use a pickaxe on it, finding a tunnel that leads to what appears to be a laboratory. Ancient tales say that dragons were created by a powerful race of creatures known as the Dragonkin, who terrorized the world for many years during the early 4th Age, albeit until now no connection has been proven. While investigating the ancient mural, a tiny spawn appears which you easily deal with. The mural has images of dragons and fungi alongside the word Lifkren. You also find some ancient machinery and notes next to it mentioning an experiment which usually fails, although the most recent result showed that the subject displayed heightened aggression but with lower mental capacity. Lifkren is a word that Dallas Jones has seen before on Fossil Island when investigating the connection between wyverns and dragons. In fact, the island has similar architecture to this room, as there was also information regarding spores and mushrooms. That connection now seems even stronger. You're going to meet Dallas there. You go to the house on the hill and climb downstairs, finding him. Livgren is a nearby island, but there are a lot of islands around, so it's uncertain which one is which. On the floor, there is a grid, which is actually a map that can lead to Livgren. You search the stone chests and some other places nearby to find tile pieces. These are placed into the correct locations, and with the map complete, you find Livgren, which is northwest. You ask if the museum might help, but Dallas Jones says that there would be too much paperwork involved and there is no time. He's been researching this for years and is tired of waiting. He says that a dwarf called Jadric, somewhere on the island, would be able to get a boat for him. Jadric owes Dallas a favour, and as all the boats here on the island are owned by the museum, you're going to actually have to build one yourself. 8 oak planks, 10 swamp paste, 12 nails, a hammer and a saw later, you build a rowboat on the west side of the island. You get to the island and Dallas rushes in a hurry to explore. Jadric will look after the boat. You climb up and down some stairs, finding some ancient doors. But there's no keyhole, just a round insertion. You search a skeleton, finding an old book. It reads that the Dragonkin have been known to experiment on creatures, but the scale here is larger than anything they've seen in the past. Robert appears unconcerned, and this most likely refers to Bob the Cat's previous life. The beasts which the Dragonkin have been abducting have been taken to this island, and the plan to come to Livgren is the last entry into the diary. Dallas Jones thinks that Robert the Strong is dead, but you say that he is actually a cat, which will take him a while to believe or understand. You run around Gillinor to find Bob. He has no memory of Livgren, so you both go to the Sphinx in Sophonem. The Sphinx grants you the ability to speak with cats without needing the amulet. While the Sphinx may be able to hypnotize Bob, he won't be able to help you find the memories of his past life. You mentioned that the Oneiromancer on Lunar Isle may be able to help. The dream between a cat and a human shouldn't be too different from 2 humans. You will still need a potion of shared dreaming. In a special vial of water, you mix a ground astral rune and some goutweed. Then you light the ceremonial brazier in the middle of the town and pour the dream potion. Inside the dream you see Bob, and not Bob. You say that you're looking for the memories of Robert the Strong. The memories are on the other side of this barrier. You have to head on and defeat Robert the Strong. You avoid his powerful arrows by running behind the pillars. After you defeat him, Bob's memories come back. As Robert the Strong, he remembers a team of people defeating the Dragonkin who were planning to release a weapon onto the world. A key was split into 4 parts and then hidden across Gillinor. Robert hid 2 of the pieces, one in a maze on the southeastern coast of the Karazi jungle, another in a fortress on a snow-covered island northwest of Relica. Tristan passed another piece down to his descendants in Varrock. Kamora took another of the pieces and travelled west, never returning to the mainland. You then make your way to the maze in the Karazi jungle and navigate it, avoiding damage from the Guardians who have 3 different attack styles. You also disarm traps and jump over others using your thieving and agility abilities. On your way to the center, you find a skeleton with a journal belonging to Malamak. In the center, you find a plinth with a dragon key piece which you take. Reading the journal, you learn that Malamak was a disciple of Zamorak. Zamorak had ordered a team of people to go to Karamja to look for this piece. How he got this information is still unknown. Next you ask Reldo in the Varrock Castle Library about Tristan Corvo. He says there might be records of his descendants in a red book. You learn that they settled in Mauritania. You find a ghost called Sarah and ask if she knows any of the Corvos. She says that she is in fact Sarah Corvo. Her father told her to keep the piece protected no matter what. When the vampires came to Port Phasmatis, she buried it out in the swamps to stop them from getting it. You have an idea to look for the metal by speaking to Ava, who made the accumulator for you. You explain that you're looking for a piece of the key made of red metal buried somewhere in the Mauritania swamp. She recognizes that the red metal is orichalcum, or dragon as the adventurers call it. With a cut dragonstone, 2 molten glass, a glass blowing pipe and a chisel, you make a locator orb. She adjusts it and you can now track the piece. She also thinks that she might be able to upgrade your accumulator device if you bring her something stronger than chicken feathers. You use the locator orb, although it's a bit unstable, and you take damage when you use it. And when you eventually find the spot, you dig to get the second dragon key piece. You talk to Brunt the Chieftain about a Dragonkin fortress where Robert may have hidden his piece. The island is called Ungale, a dark place guarded by a deadly beast called Vorkarth. On the docks, Thorfinn can take you to Ungale. After a long and heroic battle with the mighty Vorkarth, you defeat it and go up the ice chunks behind him, pass a ruined building and find stairs into a cave. You find an incubator which you inspect, finding an old note inside it. It says that the storage of samples here is better due to the cold, but they need more room, so they're planning to build a bigger facility on Lifkren. In the southwestern section, you see a lever, which you pull and you hear a ticking sound. You run to the wall on the eastern side before the door closes. Inside you find a chest with another piece of the dragon key and also a different, ancient key. Gamora founded the Shazian on Zaya. In the Shazian crypts, you run past skeletons which attack you with all three styles, and you eventually make it to the central area where you find a tomb that you inspect. The plaque on it is loose, and removing it reveals a second inscription. Robert, Gamora, Tristan and Ivers sat at a round table to plan their victory. It talks about on what side each hero sat at the table in terms of north, south, east or west, and what their weapon was. So you grab the 4 busts from the corner of the room and place them according to the riddle. Now when you search the tomb you find the final key piece. To forge the 4 dragon key pieces together, you need a furnace that's hotter than a typical one. Bob doesn't remember exactly where it is, but he says you might find one guarded by dragons of Mithril. You enter the ancient cavern and insert the ancient key that you found on Ungel into the door, getting into a strange room with 3 dragon heads and an orb. You cast Fire Wave on each of the heads and the apparatus is set in motion. You then go to the southwestern area of the ancient cavern and find an incredible looking forge. You use the anvil here to smith the 4 pieces of the dragon key together, successfully remaking it. You now use the ancient key on the ancient doors. It fits perfectly into the hole. On the other side you see a huge dragon and a mysterious voice says that the dragon's name is Galvik. The voice was of a dragonkin called Zorgoth. It turns out that Elvarg was just the first attempt at the weapon and was much weaker than Galvik. All the other dragonkin were defeated, but when the door was sealed it gave Zorgoth all the time he needed to perfect his experiment. More powerful than any other dragon, it would annihilate all of humanity. When asked why, he says that all of the dragonkin were killed, so to retaliate he will kill all of the humans. Galvik awakens and kills Dallas. You grab Bob and run away. Jardik shoots an arrow at Galvik, so Zorgoth attacks him. Galvik flies out from the ruins as it crumbles. Zorgoth is about to assemble an army of dragons. Wondering what to do, Jardik suggests going to King Rold as he has a large army. Jardik will talk with Keldgrim. King Rold is aware that dragons have been spotted flying around. You explain that Zorgoth is bringing them under his control and forming an army which he intends to use to attack humanity. In the meantime, King Rold asks you to visit King Lathas, Chieftain Brunt and Ceramic Vase to gather in Varrock to discuss the dragon threat. The kings will have to put aside their petty disagreements in this endeavour. In the dining room of Varrock Castle, all the leaders of the world are gathered to fight the greatest threat that they have ever seen. The plan is to attack the dragons before they attack the rest of the world, and it would keep the fight away from any innocents. Each ruler will gather their fleet of ships. Even though it won't be strong against the dragonfire, it's the best plan of action. Everyone works together to defeat this common enemy. Bob says that the real threat is Zorgoth. No matter how many dragons you kill, it won't be over until Zorgoth himself is dealt with. Without Galvik, Zorgoth has nothing. Torfin takes you to the fleet. All the warriors of all the realms of Gielinor are together. Whilst dragons attack the ship, you repair the damaged mast with a hammer and heal Fremeniks that are hurt. You uphold the ship and its members for 4 minutes. As the fleet gets closer to the island, the ships are overwhelmed. You now climb onto the debris of the ships, jumping from one to another. On the Varrock ship you defeat a red dragon, an iron dragon and a brutal green dragon. Then you see Bob and defeat 2 more blue dragons and green dragons. Then, when Zorgoth tells Galvik to shoot a fireball at you, Bob fucking jumps in front to save you. No! Bob! Next you defeat black, steel and brutal red dragons, and your allies appear to help. You defeat the Mithril Adamant and Rune dragons together, and Zorgoth now releases the full might of Galvik's power. Your allies are watching your back whilst you take him on. After a very intense battle with 4 phases, you defeat Galvik. He fires one last breath out and it kills Zorgoth. That was for Bob. A statue is placed in memory of Bob. You go back to Alec Kincaid outside the Myths Guild and tell him all about the quest and all that you discovered. The secrets you uncovered help to fill out the Library of Knowledge and you are welcomed into the guild. You get 80,000 smithing, 60,000 mining, 50,000 agility and 50,000 thieving XP. You can now pass the magical barrier into the Myths Guild. The gnome Primula teaches you how to make some anti-dragonfire potions. You can now talk to Ellen, who will train you for 4 times 25,000 XP in combat skills of your choice minus prayer. You can now make wrath runes, forge dragon plate body and kite shields, and have access to adamant and rune dragons. With Vorkarp's head, you can make Ava's assembler, and you can also craft ferocious gloves with hydra leather. Song of the Elves. To start this quest, you must have completed Druidic Ritual, The Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Making History, Sheep Herder, Waterfall Quest, Plague City, Biohazard, Underground Pass, Regicide, Roving Elves, Morning's End Part 1, and Morning's End Part 2. Edmund says that Elena has been taken by the Knights of Ardoin. They claim that she was inciting a rebellion against the king. King Lathas says that although his brother Tyrus is dead, the Dark Lord is still a threat. The idea of the plague must remain, and there can't be a rebellion until he's dealt with, even though you know that the plague isn't real. You tell Edmund that the king will not free his daughter Elena, and you update him on current events. When she sent some plague samples to Guido and Varrock, it showed that there was no plague and that the king was aware of this. But as his brother Tyrus, the king of West Ardoin, explored the lands to the west, he supposedly became corrupted by the Dark Lord, and that is why King Lathas decided to quarantine the city off, to keep the rest of the world safe. The plague was an excuse that he gave for doing it. You then explained that there are elves who are in a civil war. An elf called Arianwyn then updated you, saying that King Lathas and Lord Iorwerth were in fact the evil ones that were the ones intending to summon the Dark Lord. King Lathas was disappointed when his father split the kingdom into 2 between him and his brother, and he always hoped that he would reclaim Camelot from King Arthur. He believes that the Dark Lord will help him get that. Lord Iorwerth wants to use the Dark Lord to defeat the rebel elves and end the civil war, which has been going on for hundreds of years. As Lord Iorwerth believes that the secrets to summoning the Dark Lord are found within the Temple of Light, the plague was made up to hide their mining operation beneath the city. All the people who they claim died of the plague are actually getting sent into the mines. As they're holding Elena in the prison beneath the castle, you could disguise yourself as a Knight of Ardoin, infiltrate the prison and free her. Arena makes a tabard for the armor with some silk and some purple dye. You use the tabard on the plate body and the red dye on the helmet to color the plume. You now have Ardoin Knight armor. Elena has a plan to escape. The iron grate at the back of her cell looks like it could melt with some sulfuric acid, which she has at her home. You get the thick, clear liquid from her cabinet and she makes her escape. Edmund knows that she got out and is currently hiding in the Renison household in West Ardoin. There, when you search the bed in the corner, you find a trapdoor underneath it, which you climb through. Here is the Ardoin Resistance. Elena has been busy recruiting people by telling them the truth about the plague, whilst you were busy infiltrating the mourners during the Morning's End quests. Some people that she tried to convince didn't believe her and reported her, which is why she was arrested. You update her by saying that under West Ardoin, the Temple of Light is being discovered to summon the Dark Lord. You've got to set up a plan before they do so. Councillor Halgreave suggests that you use the dirty tactic of disguising yourself as a Knight of Ardoin and doing certain actions as if they were ordered by the king, which will upset the people. Even though it's not a perfect plan, it's for the better good. The aim is to recruit 80 more people across both sides of Ardoin. You disguise yourself as a mourner and burn sacks of grain in West Ardoin and say that it was the king's orders. You also tell the people that there are new taxes and that the nurse has to restrain from helping those that are sick. In East Ardoin, you dress as a knight and start warning everyone about new taxes too. With 80 new recruits, you'll be able to move against the king. Now you defeat 10 mourners upstairs, climb down the trapdoor and defeat 11 more. Esselt escapes by teleporting out. Before the king has any time to prepare, you go to the castle and defeat 15 paladins and knights of Ardoin. King Lathas says that he was betrayed and that the rest of Ardoin will be betrayed too. He was annoyed that he didn't get his birthright and that the land was split in 2. He was aware that the mourners were being used to discover the Temple of Light and that he was assisting in bringing the return of Zamorak. He says that his brother was never meant to rule. Then there was a trial condemning the king. He curses everyone in the name of Zamorak and is executed. You and Elena are knocked out. You seem to be captured by Lord Iorwerth, and just as he's about to throw you in prison, Arianwyn appears accusing him of trying to summon Zamorak. Lord Iorwerth says that he is actually not supporting Zamorak. That was just a lie he told King Lathas to get him on his side. Once they discovered that he secretly worships him, it was the obvious lie to tell. Lord Iorwerth serves only one goddess, Seren, and the Temple of Light is actually going to be used to summon her, not Zamorak. He claims to have learned this by breaking a seal in the Library of Knowledge, but Arianwen doesn't trust him. Iorwerth decides to let you go. In Lecture, a meeting is going to be called and you're asked to fetch Ysgwyn on the upper platforms, although he's not very trusting of you. And next to the pond you find Elena. Arianwen wants to discuss a plan of action and why Lord Iorwerth may have let you go. Maybe he thinks that the rebels could be of use to him. By breaking one of the 9 seals within the Grand Library, he has learned that Seren lives trapped within the Temple of Light. Seren was the elven goddess who helped build the great city of Prifddinas. At the end of the God Wars, Seren was shattered into thousands of crystals. When Lord Iorwerth first took control of the city, Baxtorian led an army to try and stop him, but that failed. So they sang the Song of Inversion and reverted the entire city to a crystal seed. Baxtorian is the one that Seren trusted the most, so maybe he might have left some information before he passed. It's also important to learn what Lord Iorwerth's intentions are, and whether he does have access to the Grand Library. Isolwyn will give you a book that was passed down from his ancestors, which might contain something of use. You make your way to the Baxtorian Falls. Arianwen's parents unfortunately passed when they assisted Baxtorian in trying to reclaim the Elven lands. This happened when he was a young child. He hands you the book that Isolwyn was given. The book is a riddle that talks about items that can be placed on the pillars in this tomb. A nature rune, an irit leaf, a black knife, a wine of Zamorak, an adamant chain body, and a cabbage are placed on the 6 pillars according to the riddle, and Baxtorian comes to life from his statue. You update him by saying that Glariel couldn't make it, but that you did move her remains here. Arianwen says that Isolwyn, his grandson, is in Lecture, but sadly his daughter, Erlis, passed away. Arianwen teleports himself and Baxtorian to Lecture, and you go back too. Baxtorian was filled in on everything that has happened, and he admits that he knows that the seals of the Ground Library can theoretically be broken. Seren told Baxtorian that those who followed the light could access her knowledge. Baxtorian thinks that you might be able to enter Prifddinas in its seed form. It's kind of like a box, and with the right potion you should be able to bypass the defenses around it. As Elena specializes in potions, you meet her next to the pond. She says that Baxtorian reminds her of the story of 2 brothers living in Avaroka. They had a simple life farming the land and selling produce to the people in the city. These farmers were called to fight in a war, and unfortunately one of them died, but with that also died all the hope that the other brother had. In a similar way, Baxtorian lost his wife, his people and his kingdom a long time ago. Though he might not be totally lost, he still has Isolwyn and could turn the war around. Here in the garden patch they have prepared the soil and you plant a Candentine seed for it to grow into an Elder Candentine plant. Although the walls of Prifddinas have been enchanted, Lord Iorwerth likely has managed to manipulate the defences. There were 8 separate elven clans that journeyed with Seren to this world, and all of those clans still exist. Lord Amlod, from the clan of Mystics, created Prifddinas' defences. He's alive but went into hiding. He left a clue behind, which Baxtorian has deciphered. He also deciphered Lady Traherne's clue as well. The clue for Lord Amlod is that the Elven Crystal will lead you to him. Baxtorian gives you a crystal seed which you can use to help locate him. And to find Lady Traherne of the Mining and Smithing clan, her clue was that she journeyed south from the well. You also ask Baxtorian about Seren, and he says that although she was remarkable, under the surface she hid a great pain, a sadness unlike any other. She never spoke of it, but you could see the anguish. Even gods had their demons. The brightest light cast the darkest shadow, and no one shined brighter than Seren. Elined enchants the crystal seed that Baxtorian gave you, and you teleport to the edge of a field with a mysterious figure who has a bear cloak. You see a stag and nature all around you. You describe the land ahead of you, and he says it reminds him of Prifddinas. He is Lord Amlod, and he is happy to travel to Lecture with you. Next you go to the Well of Voyage near the western entrance of the underground pass. South of the well you see a crevice which you mine through. On the other side you see an old elf. She is asleep and has an exoskeleton made from runite. It is damaged and needs repairing. You use a runite bar to repair it and she awakens. You say that Baxtorian sent you and that you need help in the fight against Lord Iorwerth. Enough time has passed for the Candentine to grow and it is ready to be harvested. The other ingredient needed is crystal dust. Backstory gives you an old crystal which you grind with a pestle and mortar. You add the Elder Candentine to a vial of water and then use the crushed crystal, making an inversion potion. Everyone is gathered to discuss the next step. As you now have everything needed to enter the crystal seed containing Prifdinus, and only one person can enter the crystal, they vote for you. You talk to Lord Amlod to teleport you into the Grand Library. You have to find the broken seal and discover the knowledge that Iorwerth had uncovered. You can also seek out the other 8 seals and break them as well, as this knowledge may be the key to fight against the darkness. Those who follow the light will be able to access Seren's knowledge. Inside you touch the seal of the Forgotten, and the memory of Seren appears. The knowledge from the broken seal was that within Seren there was darkness. It was sealed away in the Temple of Light. A prison within a prison safeguards that darkness, but there is a key, an orb of light which unlocks it, and the orb was hidden away. The shrine at Gorla is where it lies, and now there's a light puzzle. You place and rotate the mirrors to unlock the seal, and then touch the seal of Ithil, and the memory of Seren appears. A mystic called Kaidwad documented Seren's teachings in a book called the Kurdi. More knowledge can be found in the seals of Kadun. You collect crystals from the crystal dispenser and take the hand mirrors. After placing them correctly, you unlock the next seal. Kaidwad was Seren's closest friend, but elves were mortal and each death was like a knife to her heart. Next seal is of Chris. Seren shared the knowledge of the Song of Creation with the elves. Next is the seal of Amlod, which reveals that by extending the lives of the elves she had accidentally cursed them because when she went away it would cause them pain and sometimes even death. The seal of Myla reveals that another god promised great power, so Seren took all the elves to journey with her. The next seal, of Hefin, says that they found a new home, a city made from crystal, but underneath it was a dark power, of which Seren thought that she could lift its curse. Unlocking the seal of Traherne reveals that after 1,000 years, deep beneath the mountains of their home, Seren found a source of deathly energy. She believed that the darkness would be the perfect counter to nullify the curse, but she was mistaken. The last seal, of Iorwerth, says that Seren is a being of light, but even within Seren there is darkness. The darkness was combined with the deathly energy that Seren found. Seren created a fragment of herself, one of darkness rather than light, and hoped that this would end the curse. The darkness turned on Seren and tried to destroy her, so she sealed it away. The fragment is what Lord Iorwerth is accidentally trying to summon. A meeting is called to discuss what's been discovered. Seren's last attempt to allow the elves to live was to shatter herself into many crystals, and this is what all the elves carry with them, which explains why they don't die or suffer. You mentioned the orb, which is the key for the Temple of Light in Gorla. Backstory says that Gorla is an old shrine to Seren, north of Prifdinus. Everybody needs some time to themselves before convening at another meeting later. In the meantime, while you are exploring in the Grand Library, Backstory has managed to decipher 2 more clues left by Lord Chris and Lord Hefin, so you can go find them. Lord Chris, of the clan of woodcutters and farmers, left a clue that the trees of his home will call to him. Lord Hefin, of the clan of the religious leaders of the elves, left a clue that she would walk across the water to the south. At the poison swamp, you jump over some stepping stones and find Lady Hefin. You say that she is needed in the village of Letya and she will go there at once. In the forest, you pass a stick trap and get to a lake. You see a tree which you try to chop. This is Lord Chris. You say that Backstorian sent you to find him, and he knows that it's time to uproot and he will head to Letya at once. Another meeting is called, with many of the elders attending. Yisguin has returned from Gorla trying to find the orb, but the shrine was empty. He thinks that the orb is at Lord Iorwerth's camp, and when scouting there he discovered that Lord Iorwerth already knows that you've been to the Grand Library. Assuming that he will soon discover the dwarven mines that led to the Temple of Light, they're going to make sure that the tunnel is secure while you go to Lord Iorwerth's camp. Arianwin wasn't able to attend the meeting. Apparently he wasn't feeling well. Yisguin does not share his methods of how he managed to spy the information from Lord Iorwerth. You enter the cave at his camp, and one of the archers and warriors start to attack you. After you defeat both of them, you loot the chest and find the orb. Backstorian will look after it. Instead of calling a meeting to say that the orb's been found, he's going to keep it on the low as he fears that the group has been fractured with the recent news of Seren, and some of the elders want to take matters into their own hands. Either way, they want to prevent Iorwerth's forces from succeeding. Ysgwyn has been distant and Baxtorian doubts his loyalty. He would like you to find him. Elena did see him leave recently, but she doesn't know in which direction he went, so she suggests that you find his trial. You inspect the rocks and other signs and find the footsteps, following them until you get to him. He is talking to the head of research for Lord Iorwerth, Iestyn Edun. It turns out that he was Ysgwyn's informant. Iestyn didn't want the other elves to know because they might have misunderstood and imprisoned him, so it was safer for Ysgwyn to keep the information to himself. Iestyn says that there's a traitor amongst the rebels and that they told Lord Iorwerth how to find the village of Lechia. They're going to launch their assault soon, so you all head back. You and Elena are going to help the citizens while Ysgwyn is going to look for the orb. You help Morph find her children. Inside the house you search under the table to find Eoin, and in some cooking pots to find Iona. Lord Iorwerth appears. Elena will get the citizens to safety while you deal with him. He asks for the orb and he'll withdraw his forces, leaving them in peace. Arianwen has been convinced by Lord Iorwerth that he's not the enemy, and they're convinced that they are freeing Seren. When Iorwerth learned how to free her, he disobeyed his mother, who was the ruler of the clan, and in fact killed her to be the new head of the clan. He puts Eoin in front of him and says that if Baxtorian doesn't give the orb, he will kill the boy. Baxtorian gives the orb to save the boy's life, and Ysgwyn is killed. You chase after them and confront Arianwen. You explain that they're not actually trying to free Seren, but instead the fragment of her dark side. You ask him to let you pass and chase Lord Iorwerth, but he doesn't let you, so you have to fight him. Right before he is defeated, he manages to escape. Mourning for Ysgwyn, Baxtorian now admits that when he was returning from his kingdom in the east, after Lord Iorwerth took Prifddinas, he kept sending his soldiers, but they kept dying to Iorwerth's forces, as they had the fortified walls of the city. Most of his people died, and Glariel was taken from him. When they were finally able to find out where she was, he sent all his soldiers to save her, but it was a trap. So then he sealed himself away, in the hopes that she would come and find him one day. Isilwyn is sad because his mother Erlis died in that war. He's going to the underground pass and he intends to fight. You say that the dwarves may be able to seal the tunnel and that this would stop the Iorwerth forces from getting there. Before doing so, you find the last two clan elders. One of the clan elders passed away, but their descendants can be found. And if you can get in contact with the new king of Ardoin, he may be willing to also help. Lady Ithel of the clan of builders and architects left a clue that she put her soul into her greatest work. This village of Lechia was her final and finest contribution to the people. Lady Myla of the clan of scientists and explorers left a clue to follow the scrolls to find her. Baxtorian hands you a clue scroll. You go around Lechia finding symbols on the walls. Every symbol fills your mind with a bit more knowledge. When you get the fifth bit of knowledge, you learn that a statue is to be built in the middle of Lechia, requiring 8 limestone bricks. When you build the statue, Lady Kellen Ithel regains all of her knowledge. It turns out that she is the closest living relative of Lady Ithel, and she is happy to help at the underground pass. The first step of the clue are some coordinates. Then you find the second step in Zolandra. The next step is an anagram, and just outside the city gates of Prifddinas you dig and find another clue. Lastly, you spin outside the western entry of the underground pass with nothing equipped and see Lady Fion Myla. Everyone is now headed to the dwarven camp in the underground pass. You get there and see that it's been reinforced, and you talk to Baxtorian. General Heining has given the full support of the Tyrus forces, but the King of Ardoin does not wish to assist. You find out by talking to Elena that there's something that you can do to fortify the defences. Some of the alcohol that the dwarves have brewed is highly flammable. Elena mixed it with some chemicals to make it quite explosive. You load these in the holes outside the camp, and with this final prep in place you get ready to defend the fort and buy some time for the dwarves to seal up the mine. Lord Iorwerth would like to meet you and Baxtorian to have a final discussion before any fighting. Even though Lord Iorwerth is aware of what you discovered in the library, he still thinks that there's a chance to free Seren in the Temple of Light. And because you will not back down, he has no option but to attack. Once you successfully defend the fortress for 4 minutes, Esselt appears and gravely harms Elena. While you deal with him, Baxtorian chases Lord Iorwerth and Arianwen, who made it to the crystal. You defeat Esselt. Baxtorian tries to reason and say that this is not the Seren that they knew. Arianwen also thinks that this isn't Seren, but Lord Iorwerth doesn't care anyway, and right as he unfreezes evil Seren, Arianwyn shoots him. The fragment of Seren is in pain and fights you. She does 4 attacks, one that teleports you towards her, which you have to run away from to avoid melee damage. Then she splits into a darker and lighter version, of which you have to attack the lighter version. Then she summons healers, which you have to quickly defeat. And finally she does an attack that puts you on the spot and deals massive damage. As the fight progresses, she spawns more healers. Quick tip, in case you have low stats like me, use the Phoenix Necklace method, it's worth learning. After defeating Seren, Lord Iorwerth is shocked by what you have done and is still convinced that she was innocent, but just confused and needed time to overcome her pain. Now that she's gone, Iorwerth feels that the last hope for the Elves is gone too, and with that, he draws his last breath and dies. Arianwyn feels guilty that a lot of people have died because of him, but you remind him that many more would have perished if you hadn't stopped Lord Iorwerth. And although you both recognise that it was not Seren, but a demented fragment of her, at least her pain has now ended. Arianwyn does imagine how things could have been if they were different. And he doesn't feel like he can stay with the Elves any longer, so he's going to leave and explore the world. You bid each other farewell. Maxtorian and Elena greet you at the gates of Prifddinas, which has been rebuilt, as well as Lechia, but you express confusion as you can't see Prifddinas at all. Maxtorian says that this is one of the security measures that were put in place during the God Wars. From the outside, it looks like there's nothing there. Maxtorian and the other elders have come to an agreement to allow outsiders to visit. They've been afraid and mistrusting for too long. You and Elena are the first ones with the honour of visiting the city. Elena is going to move in as she has a lot to learn from the Elves. Maxtorian and the elders have realised that there shouldn't be a singular elf ruler nor a gang of leaders, and will explore different options of governance. You are rewarded with access to Prifddinas and 40,000 XP in agility, construction, farming, herb lore, hunter, mining, smithing and woodcutting. Desert Treasure 2. To start this quest you must have completed Below Ice Mountain, the mini-quest His Faithful Servants, the Garden of Death, Temple of the Eye, Inakra's Lament, Secrets of the North and Desert Treasure 1. You feel the energy of ancient magic radiating from this door of an ancient vault on the southern hill of the Uza Oasis. As you approach, the ancient symbol starts to glow. You enter the tomb with 4 statues and Asgarnia Smith appears. He is still looking for more treasure, and he felt that the last treasure hunt with you was pointless. But after he uncovered this tomb and was unable to open the door, you explained to him that you were only able to open it because of the ancient magic abilities you learned from the last adventure. You inspect the 4 statues. They are the Whisperer, Vardorvis, Perseria and Sucellus. You also inspect the plaque on the eastern wall. It says, "The mighty treasures of the Empty Lord are bound in this vault. His faithful servants protect this safe." Asgarnia Smith concludes that you have to look for the pieces that the statues are holding. You explain that the only clues you have are 4 names, and that you won't be able to find any individuals with these names, as they are from the Zeroshan, or the Second Age. But Asgarnia believes that Terry Bolando at the dig site might have some more information for you. So you speak to him, and say that you found an interesting Zeroshan vault, but he doesn't think he can help you, by making the point that you might know more about the Zeroshan Empire than he does. Coincidentally, there's been a new arrival at the dig site who claims to be a Zeroshan expert, Dr. Banneken. At the easternmost point in the dig site, you climb down a winch and find him. For some reason, you feel like he's familiar, though he insists you haven't met before. You say that it's quite a coincidence that an expert on the topics of Zaros appeared at the dig site very soon after Zaros' discovery in the first place. Anyway, you tell him the 4 names, Vardorvis, Perseria, Sucellus, and Whisperer. He asks you what you know about the Empire of Zaros, and you explain that his most trusted general, Zamorak, overthrew him and became a god in the process. Dr. Banneken thinks this could have quite possibly been the singular, most pivotal moment in all of Gilinor's history. What Dr. Banneken wants to know is, what happened to the Empire following Zaros' defeat? Seniston, which is just under the dig site, is believed to have been the capital of this empire. Dr. Banneken thinks that a military installation is here, under the dig site, and it could possibly have information on the 4 names that you found. He expects that this information would be protected against falling into the hands of anyone that they wouldn't want to know, predicting for there to be some form of defense. You're up for a challenge. Dr. Banneken thinks that he's on the last steps of discovering more ancient ruins of this city, and you say, alright, so what do we need to explode? Which confuses him, and then you explain that you found the Zerosian temple under the dig site by causing a massive explosion, at which point he is annoyed that you risked the structural integrity of that ancient temple by blowing it up, so he insists that you just use a pickaxe this time and carefully clear away the rocks. You discover a hole and ask Dr. Banneken to stay behind while you check to see if it's safe to go down. An ancient guardian appears and starts attacking you. It has an ancient shield which you have to attack through with melee, and every few attacks rocks start falling from the ceiling which you avoid. After you defeat it, it's safe for Dr. Banneken to come out. So now he says you should take a look around. Another golem appears, but in the form of a machine. It has an 8x8 grid of slots and requires 8 cells to achieve the correct power level. You take 8 uncharged cells from the crate and find a room with an altar and 4 statues of ice, smoke, shadow and blood. You cast a magic burst spell on the corresponding statues, and the altar gives off a magical energy which imbues your cells into charged ones. You place the cells into the grid so that there's 1 in each section, 1 in each row, and only 1 per column, with no 2 of them being adjacent to each other. The golem machine now asks you for your search terms, so you search Vardorvis, Perseria, Sucellus, and the Whisperer. Vardorvis was of the vampire race and was last seen travelling west in pursuit of a high-value target named Yonrith Lovakenge. Dr. Banneken knows a girl named Alyssa who did research on the Lovakenge area. Perseria was of the Siren race, and her ship was lost to the Abyss in the battle for the Eye. You explain that you're familiar with the ancient rift of the Eye. Sucellus took command of the remaining forces of the Holy Empire and was last seen at the Gorok prison. You say that you know of a dungeon under Weiss where this could be. And the Whisperer was also a Siren, last stationed at Lassar when the fortress fell. Lassar was an old Zerosian fortress that was built on top of the Ice Mountain, and you explain that though it's not there any longer, underneath is Cam de Zal, and the golem here looks very similar to the ones you've encountered there. Dr. Banneken then uses the machine to look for some information, and now he'll need to consult a friend who is far away, so he departs. You ask the golem to repeat the last search, which was of the Frostenhorn, last seen in Seniston, and was removed by unknown individuals. Climbing back up to the surface, you speak to Alyssa, who explains that there's an ancient monument in Lovakenge called the Burning Man, which represents the defeat of an ancient evil thousands of years ago, long before the formation of the Great Korend Empire. Near the Burning Man, a dwarf named Barris explains that it's a pyre to remember the brave leader that was able to help the dwarves overcome the evil that came from the Stranglewood, which is a cursed place that most people never return from, if they ever risk going. A chap from Hasidius went missing not too long ago, and Barris thinks he went to the Stranglewood. The chap lived just south of the Hasidius estate agent, so you visit the house and search the desk to find a strange potion and a note. It's researching samples from the Stranglewood. Whilst it doesn't fully protect from the infection, at least it provides some defense against the strangler parasite. The man then took a small boat from Quidamortum. Before you board that small rowboat, you drink the strange potion and go to the Stranglewood. You run into the city and get chased and attacked by the infected Strangled along the way. As you climb into a temple, you step on some tendrils and Cassandre appears. He insists that you know who he is, but you're confused. He thinks you've been following him into the old ruins from the Garden of Death quest, but you say that you're not interested in the magic of the old ones and that you just happened to stumble upon his campsite, so you weren't intentionally following him. You explain that you're just looking for someone called Vardorvis, but Cassandre doesn't believe that this is all just a coincidence. He can hear the Strangled approaching and asks if you disturbed any of the tendrils on your way in, which you did. So now you've got to go downstairs to defend Cassandre against waves of them for a few minutes. By unlocking stone chests with lockpicks, you get some barricades which you build and use explosions, also freezing and defeating the Strangled as they approach, surviving long enough until the horde begins to retreat. It's now safe to head back up. Even though you've defeated Cassandre, he still doesn't trust you. He knows that the old ones discovered soul transference. An obvious reason for why he's interested in that is because he's dying. Unfortunately, the ancient ones created a sort of parasite known as the Strangler. It was supposed to play a role in the soul transference rituals, but it instead destroyed the people. The potion that you drank can be made more strong with the ingredients found here, which should provide immunity against the Strangler infection. There's a herb growing atop the cliff northwest of the temple, and there are some berries in the old camp to the southwest. The Strangled tend to attack all together, so it's best to avoid them. Cassandre says there are stink bombs in the chests which will help to distract them, and you shouldn't step on the tendrils because it works like a network that would attract them. Throughout Stranglewood, you can find tatty pages that detail an expedition led by the axe-wielding vampire Carnifex Maximus. The expedition was exploring the strange land with mysterious ruins. They discovered a deadly parasite that infected the leader, and after an attack by some dwarves, his head was cut off. The rest of the crew slowly became more infected, but the leader suffered the strangest effects. There are shrines here that give you a stamina effect. Entering a large pyramid, Cassandre is being attacked by 2 strangled, and he got bitten by 1. He had a disease anyway, so it doesn't make a big difference. He went to every healer, mage and priest, but none could cure him. He believes that the old ones are his last hope to stay alive. He gives you the unfinished potion, and you add the corbel herb and the argyrum berries to it, making the Strangler's Serum. You're now as protected as you can be against the strangled, and you can also unlock a secret entry which acts as a shortcut to get to Vardorvis. His attacks are some swinging axes that fly across a 3x3 grid area, homing spikes from the ground which you have to avoid, Vardorvis' head projectile which you need to pray ranged against, and virus cells appear on your screen which you have to quickly click. His damage and speed increases as his health lowers. When you defeat Vardorvis, you get a temple key. You return to the pyramid now, and Cassandre grabs an item, now saying that he needs to go back to Corrend, although you warn him that he can't go there because he is infected and he would put the lives of everyone in Gillenor at risk. He says that he will go no matter what, and you say you cannot step aside to let him do that, so you fight, avoiding his potions and explosion attack by running around the columns. Cassandre is defeated, and now he's dying, believing that he only needed more time. He says that at the ritual site you won't find what you were looking for because Cassandre had it all along. He wasn't sure that you would have helped him if he had given it to you straight away. The medallion is in a chest back at his hideout, and then he passes away. With your first medallion, you make your way back to the temple and see a mysterious figure. They want your medallion, but you don't want to cooperate with them, so they say that they'll meet you later. You put the medallion on the Vardorvis statue, and that is 1 out of 4 complete. Next you make your way to the rift. The catalytic guardian explains that a signal has been detected from the abyss in the scar, so you enter and there are demons fighting each other. After you defeat all the monsters, you cross the stepping stones and see a rowboat that you're about to travel on, but before you do, Wizard Preston appears, and she says that it's a good thing that she found you before you got on the boat, because it would have taken you to the Leviathan and you would have become fish food. Preston shows you the base camp she set up and says that it was her who sent the magic signal, because she needed help in defeating the Leviathan. Past the Leviathan, in the Lake of Goo, there is an old ship that contains something that she needs. You ask if the name Perseria means anything, and Preston says that it's Perseria's ship that she's trying to reach. The Leviathan has a weak spot on its back, a gap in its scales. A circular island near Perseria's ship can be used to trap the Leviathan. You're going to have to use a smoke spell to stun and defeat it, but beforehand, many ships from Perseria's fleet need to be set on fire to weaken the Leviathan's power. Down in the tunnels, of which there are 3, you need to complete the puzzles. You ask what Wizard Preston wanted to do with Perseria's ship, and she says that she was just looking for information to help with her research. Another shipwreck down here suggested that Perseria was experimenting with teleportation magic, which Wizard Preston is an expert in. The creatures and demons down here are forming rituals, and it seems they're trying to harness the magic of the abyss for themselves. In the first tunnel, demons attack you with melee. For the first puzzle, you hit different axons until they reach their terminals whilst avoiding lightning. This disturbs a part of the scar, and once all 3 puzzles in one area have been completed, you can move on to another. In the second puzzle, an underwater section, you grab different nerves representing basic runes. You combine them and then place them on nerve endings and replenish the oxygen in the air bubbles. Combining the basic runes makes combination runes. Completing this further disturbs this level of the scar. Throughout the scar you find gooey notes telling the story of 4 followers of Saradomin and 1 former Zerosian, who find themselves trapped in the nightmarish abyss, where they face horrific creatures and come to the shocking realization that they are inside a living entity. The abyss is not just a realm used for teleportation. In the third puzzle room you attack the scarred imps. With the imps down you can attack the lesser demons, and with this the final challenge is complete, and you fully disturb this level of the scar. You search a skeleton and find a slimy key, and in another one you find a handful of gunpowder. The slimy key opens a chest which gives you an old tablet that talks about vessels preparing for battle and 2 artifacts called Imperium and Primus. They're trying to locate it, but with resistance from Saradomin's forces. With that, you burn the remains of the ship and the scar spits you out. Preston has opened a second tunnel, and you mention the Imperium and Primus artifacts. She thinks they are code names. Primus was defended by Saradomians, and the battle didn't go as expected, which is how they ended up here. She thinks Primus must have been the Stone of Jas. You point out that she knows a lot more than she's letting on, and she admits that she has heard of the Eye of Saradomin, also known as the Fist of Guthix, but more accurately known as the Stone of Jas. Not only could it bring great power, it could also bring great destruction, as it had done to all those who possessed it in the past, and this matches what you had realized when you first touched the stone in the Temple of the Eye quest. Preston says she's more interested in Imperium, thinking it might be connected to the stone, as it's often referred to alongside it. It might have a similar power. The next area is filled with smoke, and the demons here throw rocks. In the next puzzle room, you take lights from the leeches and repair the damaged groves. When you have fully lit the room, there are energies that you can touch. You have to click these 6 rune energies in the right order while the leeches are attacking you, and once you get it correct, the leeches die and this level of the abyss has been disturbed. The next puzzle has a catalyst showing different runes and combinations of them. You have to use the nerves on the catalyst to damage the leeches. Once they're defeated, you can leave the passage and continue. In the last puzzle room, you've got power finders, which you need to be stepping within their radius. The red ones are pulled and the blue ones are pushed, and when you make it to the end of the room, you destroy the abyssal growth, fully disturbing this level of the scar. You now similarly make your way to another ship, search skeleton to find gunpowder again, another to find a slimy key, open the chest with another tablet, and inspect it. It says that one of the guards interacted with the Imperium. He entered a frenzied state, killing 4 others before he was executed. You make your way back and tell Wizard Preston about this. She opens the final tunnel. It does seem that the Imperium might be taking control over those who interact with it. Whether the person who touches it is doing their own will or the artifacts is still unknown. Mind control is already difficult, and normally only happens from a skilled wizard on one person at a time, and the spell is easily broken, but maybe the Imperium can allow for the control of hundreds or even thousands with no way to break that control. You enter the area of the scar filled with smoke. Here the demons attack with magic, then another light puzzle with a random order. Once you turn all the lights on, you complete the room, disturbing the first part of this level of the scar. In the next puzzle room, you have to defend the antibodies who are healing the pillar, so you must defeat the creatures that come to attack. Once the fleshy pillar has been restored, the scar has been further disturbed. For the final puzzle, you collect illuminating laws, you light damaged growths, and then repair the crimson and radiant veins using the fibers from the Sanguspherus. With that, you have fully disturbed the scar. One last time, you search the skeleton for a key and gunpowder, you open the chest and read the final note. It says that the Imperium was safely secured and is on the voyage home, where they will celebrate the now guaranteed future of the Empire. The last ship is burnt, and you speak to Wizard Preston. She was talking to herself, saying that as she was so distracted with the stone, she failed to consider if there was another option. But now she sees that you're back. She says that all the smoke forced the Leviathan to return to its island. Preston says that casting a shadow spell on it should do the trick to stun it. Somehow she can tell that you must know a thing or two about ancient magics. Now you travel on the rowboat to attack the Leviathan. Blue orbs are magic, green orbs are ranged, and orange orbs are melee. Shadows appear where the rocks are falling, and you have to step away from these. The Leviathan also causes a lightning barrage, or a boulder rain, followed by a smoke blast, which you can avoid by standing behind the boulders from the rain. At 20% health, the Leviathan enters an enraged phase, and you have to stand in the moving Abyssal Pathfinder to avoid constant chip damage. In the fight, you can also stun the Leviathan with a shadow attack and then attack it on its back to deal big damage. Once you've defeated the Leviathan, you can climb down the handholds and jump across the skipping stones. Preston joins you as you find the debris of Perseria's ship. It turns out that the Imperium was never delivered to the east and that Perseria had kept it. The message that was suggesting otherwise was only to throw their enemies off course. Preston is going to stick around to see if she can discover any more about the Imperium. She's not ready to face the wizards from the Wizard's Tower just yet, so she'd prefer if you don't tell Cedrador anything just yet. In the debris you find a medallion. With this you make your way back to the chamber and place it on the statue. Now you make your way to Weiss and try to enter the Gorok prison. Some of Khazad's warriors are defending the door and they try to stop you from going in. You explain that if there was a high chance of you dying anyway by going in, wouldn't that be beneficial to General Khazad? And so thinking twice about it, they do decide to let you in. Running north in the prison, you immediately get teleported into a cell, and later awaken with all of your items gone. There's a hole in the wall and you inspect it. A mysterious voice speaks to you, saying that he was working with General Khazad, and he stuck his nose in the wrong place, so he's gotten stuck here. You plan to escape together, and he asks if you can find anything useful in your prison cell. In the skeleton you find a prisoner's letter, saying that it seems that the God Wars are over, but the Duke is not letting them leave because he wants to put preparations in place. To rebel, this prisoner wants to help the other prisoners escape, and they need to work together to do so. A hint is in the bucket. When you search it, you find a knife, which you pass to the mysterious voice through the wall, and then he hands you a chisel. You find a loose slab of stone, and use the chisel to pry it open to find a lockpick. You pass this to the mysterious voice, who frees himself and you as well. It turns out that he was the assassin from the previous quests. He says he's looking for General Khazad, and you explain that you're looking for Sucellus, believing that there may be an asylum area here to explore. In a prison cell on the opposite side of the one you were in, all your items are being stored, and so is the assassin's weapon. With the Majorat Jalan around, you'll need to work together to get your items back. The assassin will look for the asylum while you try to find a way to get your items back. You go through the dungeon until you find a refugee camp. A letter on the altar says that the Duke has convinced himself that he can restore the Empire, but unfortunately it will come at the cost of everyone in the dungeon's life. There are also hints in the letter. In the corner there's a chest. To unlock it, using the hint of light, you input the password 214013, which corresponds to the number of candles on the candle stands here. And in the chest you find a sapphire key. In another corner you find a crate with some rations that heal you and give you a stamina effect. Searching a skeleton, you find a protest note saying that the prisoners want to peacefully leave the prison. The second hint is to go to the most northwestern part of the dungeon, where you find a room filled with 25 chests. You open one that has the word vials on it, and enter the password lies, unlocking the emerald key. Now running through the dungeon, Jalan may appear, casting magic spells on you. You unblock a crevice to make it accessible from the other side. Then with the emerald key, you unlock a room that has 7 beds. In the most southeastern chest, you click up, right, left, down, right and up, finding the ruby key. In another prison cell, you find another chest and spell the word Wrath to find a diamond key. You go back to the main block and talk to the assassin. Before you hand him the diamond key, you ask him what he's actually here for, and he says he's looking for the Frostenhorn. The assassin doesn't know what it does, but that's why he's been paid to recover from this place. The person who paid him was also the one who told him to steal from Entrana. He also stole the crest from the Carnelian mansion and framed it on the Hazil cult. You then get the cells open to retrieve your inventory and also the assassin's bow sword. He thinks that Jalan has to be dealt with before you can make it to the asylum, so he suggests trapping him somewhere where you can distract him, and then the assassin can take him unaware. He suggests the old refugee camp. The assassin places some firecrackers here, which you light to draw Jalan's attention, and then you run around the room, praying mage, whilst killing the illusions he spawns to avoid taking chip damage. And after distracting Jalan for long enough, the assassin swiftly deals a fatal blow. Now he's going to search for the Frostenhorn while you deal with the Duke. You pick up a pickaxe and a pestle and mortar, and avoid the gazes from the eyes in the walls. You get the Ardor and Musket mushrooms, which you grind and then put into some barrels. You mine the salt, which you also add, to obtain 2 Ardor Musket potions. You use these on the Duke to begin the fight. You avoid his arm slams, the acid clouds, and try to avoid his open eye gaze. You also keep near him so he doesn't attack you with mage. When you defeat the Duke, you get an odd key. You use this to unlock the gate near the Duke's room, and you see the assassin, who says he's not found the Frostenhorn here. He claims that he is no longer needed unless his employer discovers the true location of the horn, so his work here is done. In the corner, you search a chest finding another medallion. When you travel with the medallion in your inventory, the mysterious figure may try to attack you. Next you go to the Ice Mountain and enter the ruins of Camdazal. You talk to an Imcamdo dwarf named Romano. You ask if any archaeologists happen to have been about, and he says there is one near the bank chest. You talk to Prescott and ask if he knows anything about the old fortress named Lassar that used to stand on the Ice Mountain. He says he found an unusual icon in the shape of a hand, and that on the western side of the ruins there is a big sinkhole. And while he thinks he must have been imagining it, he feels pretty certain that he heard a voice coming from it. You would need a very long rope tied to a rock if you were brave enough to go down, so he hands you a bundle of very long rope. You attach it to a rock and climb down, whilst hearing a voice urging you to come down into the depths. This is the Lassar Undercity. You appear in a strange throne room and find teleporters that you can activate. Throughout the city there are strange pools that you can drink from, restoring your run energy and giving you a stamina effect. In the most northwestern building of the Science District, you find a Shadow Blocker schematic and also a green shadow key. In the building south you find a purple shadow key which you also take, but as you climb down some steps to walk out onto some still water, you get dizzy and pass out. You awaken in front of an Enkamdo dwarf named Kettler. She says that your life was almost lost, explaining that there's a creature in the water that wants everyone's soul, and the longer you spend down here, the more you hear the voices calling for you to try to save the other souls that have already been stolen. She explains that your ring of visibility doesn't work here. While the ring can see shadows, it is not of the shadows. She has a shard from a totem that can allow you to actually enter the Shadow Realm completely, the Blackstone Fragment. To have any chance of fighting the Whisperer, you'll need to destroy the Shadow Totem. If you can find old schematics, Kettler will be able to create tools, such as a fire that works in Shadow Realm, different to the normal fire that wouldn't work there. You ask why Kettler is down here. She explains that long ago, when the barbarians attacked the dwarves, instead of helping by fighting along, she hid down here and is now paying the price for her choice. This Shadow City is a place where magic and science were practiced in equal measure in the age of the Lasar, but when the people here started studying the totem, they doomed the city. You show her the schematic you found, and she crafts the items from it, which you pick up from the workbench, obtaining a shadow blocker. In the building with furnaces in the science district, you place the shadow blocker next to the door, and then you use the Blackstone Fragment to enter the Shadow Realm via the Dark Puddle. In this realm you will slowly go insane over time, especially when attacked by the shadows, so being next to the shadow blocker provides you immunity while you picklock the door. Unlocking the door, you get the basic Shadow Torch schematic, and you can activate the Blackstone Fragment to leave the Shadow Realm, and also use a recall function on it to get your shadow blocker back. Bringing the new schematic to Kettler, she works on crafting a Shadow Torch. It can destroy what lurks near it. With this, you destroy the shadow tentacles that are in front of doors when you're in the Shadow Realm, allowing you to be able to pass the invisible force in the overworld. You grab a revitalizing idol schematic. This can be used to give you more sanity whilst in the Shadow Realm. You place the revitalizing idol near the eastern teleporter and make use of it to keep running north until you find the tentacles in front of the door. You now have access to the house with the blue shadow key. Next to the pub, in the residential district, you place a shadow blocker next to the entrance. Again, you picklock these doors with the safety of the shadow blocker next to you, and you pick up the superior Shadow Torch schema schematic. You find an anima portal schematic too, which gives the shadows something to hunt instead of you. Strategically placing all of the items, you run past many lost souls who quickly drain your sanity. You use the revitalizing idol to restore it, and whilst having the anima portal distract all the lost souls, you light the 4 braziers around the chest and stand next to the shadow blocker to be able to open it, finding the final schematic, the perfected Shadow Torch. Unfortunately, this schematic is a fake, as marked by the black hand of the Silent Choir. They undid the work of those who tried to resist the darkness. Throughout the city, you can find remnants, which show flashbacks of conversations, telling a tale that hints at impeding conflict, sacrificial research, and a potential manipulation of souls through the Shadow Totem. The Silent Choir used to have meetings at the cathedral often, but if they were hiding something, they'd probably do it in plain sight. They were also seen hanging out at the pub a lot, so you go into the pub, through the Shadow Realm, and go upstairs to find a remnant. It's in the cistern below the city that they gather. They promise the scared child that he'll be able to join the choir of 1,000 voices singing silently. They have to keep the icon close to them, because it marks them as one of the chosen. Without it, the child is forsaken. You pick up one more shadow key, a red one this time, and next to a chest you place a shadow blocker. You find a strange icon on the inside, but it's broken in 2 segments. You find a second part, and then combine them into one. Lastly, you enter the drain, and raise the icon towards the gate. You hear it unlocking, and you're able to get in. You see a strange pillar, which the voices were talking about in the remnants. You inspect it, and suddenly multiple shadow clone versions of you appear, confusing you into a nightmare. Kettler found you in the nick of time and destroyed the totem, which weakened the influence of the shadow so it cannot spread beyond the city. Kettler also found a missing schematic and has prepared a new tool. She warns you that something lurks in the cathedral. Now that you have a perfected Shadow Torch, you are able to destroy the wall of tentacles leading there. When you run towards the cathedral area, the Whisperer appears. It attacks with magic and range in different patterns along the fight, and tentacles appear which you have to avoid lest you go insane. When she does special attacks, you have to activate the Blackstone Fragment and go to the Shadow Realm. One special is a 3-wave attack destroying pillars of different health, another spawns souls that will either damage you, damage her, heal her, or restore your sanity, and another special requires you to step on all the light orbs. The less time you spend in the Shadow Realm and the less hits you take, the less you go insane. After the special, she casts a freeze spell on you and approaches, and if she gets near she will do melee damage, so you should freeze her to avoid this. In the enrage phase, you need to avoid the constant tentacles. When you defeat the Whisperer, you search its entrails and find the final medallion. You make your way back to the temple but are knocked out before you can go through the door. You awaken again in a cell. finding a hair clip and unlocking the gate to find a chest with your gear in it. You inspect the altar and a mysterious figure appears. Every 3 attacks it switch prayers. Defeating the strange figure, you get your Whisperer medallion back. You make your way to the tomb one last time. Ascania Smith thinks that you're going to steal the treasure all for yourself, but you're not, and you tell him it's a bad idea to place the last medallion until you understand what's going on. He throws a smoke bomb at you to stun you and steals the medallion, placing it, and some stairs are revealed. Here you find the Frosten Horn. Behind you and Ascania you hear a mysterious voice describing how powerful the artifact is. Dr. Banniken was the one talking, but it turns out that he is actually Azanadra. And it's not Frosten Horn, it's actually a relic that predates the gods themselves, known as the Elder Horn, which grants control over entire armies. It was also known as Imperium, and your adventures with Perseria helped to discover that there was a second one which was a fake, used to hide a real one. Then Haziel appears and informs Azanadra that the Frosten Horn was destroyed while you were inside Gorok prison, prompting Inakra and Ekthanikos to appear as well. They were biding their time until the tomb was unlocked so that they could get the Elder Horn. Inakra's hiring of the assassin didn't work as he wanted because he didn't retrieve any of the medallions. Meanwhile, General Khazad was busy attending to business in the north, and whilst there appears to only be 2 Zeroshan versus 2 Zamorakian here, they could all sense that a 5th Majorat was here also. Slisk the Serpent reveals himself and shows that he was Wizard Preston, the assassin, Kettler, and Cassandre all along. He took over each of their lives and used them to manipulate you to open the vault, and whilst he could have gotten the medallions himself, he was actually just testing you this whole time, to see if you were worthy. Slisk wants to work with all the Majorat together, not just using the horn for himself, but for all of them to finally be free. A final ritual of the Majorat. But the others disagree and think they can take Slisk out, but he summons an army of Barros brothers, which the Majorat start fighting. You try to stop Slisk, but then he also spawns some undead versions of all the disguises he took. First the assassin, who you have to attack in his own smoke. Then Kettler, who makes clones of herself, which you have to quickly defeat, and sometimes hide behind to avoid taking big damage. Cassandre similarly uses potions that leave pools dealing a lot of damage, and a massive explosion attack that fills 3/4 of the room. Lastly Preston, who attacks with massive lightning and spawns 2 portals releasing leeches, which deal massive chip damage unless you kill or avoid them. Whilst you were distracted fighting those clones, Slisk takes the Elder Horn and says that you will be a worthy vessel. He will see you in the north, where General Khazad is at the moment. The other Majorat will see each other in the final ritual too. While Slisk used to serve as Azanadra now recognizes that Slisk only serves himself. And whilst Azanadra doesn't want to work with the Zamorakians, it may be his only option to stop Slisk. He apologizes to you, because even though he has many followers, it was you who managed to free him, and as he was so preoccupied with allegiances, Slisk took advantage of that. The destruction of the Frosten Horn must have been Slisk's doing as well as the destruction of the artifact on Entrana, as he is the true believer of the will of the Empty Lord. The ritual of the Majorat is fast approaching, as Nadra wants to ensure that preparations are made, so he gives you a gift. Your Ring of Visibility is upgraded into a Ring of Shadows. You are rewarded with 3 ancient lamps with 100,000 XP each for combat skills, and the ability to use ancient rings to gain access to 4 new bosses. Plus you get 5 quest points, which at the time would have given you a total of 300. While Guthix sleeps. To start this quest you must have completed A Tale of Two Cats, Nature Spirit, Tears of Guthix, Temple of the Eye, Wanted, The Hand in the Sand, Dream Mentor, Fight Arena, The Path of Gluthry, and Defender of Varrock. You talk to Ivy Sophister in Tavali. She asks if you got the Armadil communique, and seeing that you did, she tells you to talk with Therisk upstairs. He leads a group of Guthixians called the Crux Ekal, whose objective is to bring balance to the world in order to protect it. This sometimes means using violence if it prevents a greater violence. This group has been keeping their eye on the Majorat for some time and consider them a threat to the world. They didn't think that Lucian was that dangerous until he obtained the Staff of Armadil. Suddenly a melee and a ranged assassin appear, who do a special attack of firing a poison arrow followed by a sneaky melee attack. You deal with them, and Therisk says that it's the first time that the assassins have ever made an attempt in Tavali, so Lucian must consider the both of you to be a massive threat at the moment. The Cruxikal have already formed an alliance with the Guardians of Armadil, and they're reaching out to the Temple Knights also. It's an unexpected scene for the followers of different gods to unite in this way, but their differences mean little when compared to the threat that the Majorat pose. Whilst Lucian is difficult to locate, he's been expanding his resources at a rapid rate, and you can take advantage of this. He's been working with many people, including the treasure hunter Mavario, who now has a Khazad army bodyguard named Darv, and you might be able to find his whereabouts by starting at the fight arena. Mavario has been doing research in all the libraries around the world, focusing on the God Wars, but mostly on Saradomin and Guthix in particular. So to recap, whilst Lucian normally operates alone, after acquiring the Staff of Armadil, he's been forming many alliances and is planning something big. You talk to the Khazad launderer who cleans clothes and ask him if he knows anyone called Darv or Mavario. You pay him 500 coins to gossip, and he says that Mavario is a frequent customer of his. He also mentions that there's this creature called a Brorf that might be able to help you find him through the scent on his clothes, so he gives you one of Mavario's dirty shirts and you go to the Feldip Hills. The hunting expert teaches you how to catch one with a pitfall trap and a Mortmire fungus as bait. Then you go to the Khazad battlefield, let the Brorf sniff the shirt, and it finds a trapdoor to a base. In a chest you find some runes and then find an old battered door with the word prohibited on it. One of the letters of this word is drawn with the symbols of a rune which is placed in the door to unlock it. In the first room of Mavario's secret base, you search bookcases and find levers which you pull until the electric current is directed and the gate is deactivated. You also search for traps on the staircase before climbing it. Upstairs on the desk you find Mavario's notes, which log his investigation into the Eye of Saradomin, aka the Fist of Guthix, aka the Stone of Jas. In the waste paper basket you find a ruby key and insert it into the keyhole in the bookcase, which raises some stairs to Mavario's bedroom. You search the bed and find a chest under it, which is also unlocked with the ruby key, but make sure to search for traps first. You find some more notes written by him. He notes that Lucian is taking an interest in his research, but despite gaining the power of the Staff of Armadil, he doesn't seem satisfied and claims that this is only the beginning. He learnt a demonic spell that raises creatures from the dead, and at the Wizard's Tower they discovered the rift of the Eye of Saradomin. Lucian wants to touch it to become more powerful. Back in the middle floor, you inspect the painting and find a lever which you pull. You search the drawers and find some notes on pressure. You then add some weight onto the statue according to how much you weighed when you first entered the base, and then leave with the notes. Therisk says that the new alliance have decided to hold their meetings in the White Knight's castle in Falador. He would like you to tell Idria near McGrubber's Woods about the updated location. You appear just as Lucian's mercenaries attack the Guardians of Armadil, and after you help deal with them, they'll meet you at the White Knight's castle. You're introduced to Arcasay, and Idria thinks that Lucian might be raising an undead army in the wilderness. To find his whereabouts, Therisk has developed a truth serum. You're given a teleorb that's directly linked to the jail cell here, so you've got to plant this on one of Lucian's spies. For now, all you know is that the spy should be in Draenor Manor or Draenor Village, so you find the shady stranger and plant a teleorb on him to trap him in the cell. But he doesn't drink the truth serum and instead destroys it. To make another potion, you'll need an enriched snapdragon, and Betty can help you with that. You get some pink dye from her and place the snapdragon seed on the table. You use the pink dye to make a rose-tinted lens and stand in the doorway to shine the pink light onto the snapdragon seed to enrich it. Therisk says there's a herb patch on top of the castle. Whilst the seed grows, you talk to Idria. Seeing that Lucian's forces will be sizable, you'll need to recruit talented individuals. She wants you to contact 3 of the Slayer Masters and Syrisus from the Dream Mentor quest. Although he's always on the move, so you'll need to use the NPC contact spell. You explain the alliance to the Slayer Master Toriel, and although he's retired, he's happy to do one last job. You also speak to Mashchna, who's been waiting for many centuries to fight the Majrat again. Syrisus says he's happy to help, and Duradel seems to have some sort of vendetta against Lucian. The enriched snapdragon has grown. Therisk makes another super truth serum, and in the drawers in the corner you find a papyrus and a charcoal. You enter the cell where the shady stranger is and threaten him, so he drinks the truth serum. He says that he never met Lucian, he only took his orders from the Dark Squall. He describes the Squall to you, and you sketch him. That's all the prisoner knows. You show the sketch to Idria, she'll send copies throughout the spy network. In the meantime, she asks you to recruit Gommel, Haralak Menarus, and Sloane from the Warriors Guild. Gommel says he'll take any chance to put down evil. Haralak is also wanted to help, and Sloane's family lives under the code of not letting any evil flourish. He and his axe will help you. Hazelmere appears. He also wants to help stop the threat. Now you have to infiltrate the Black Knight's fortress and keep an eye out for Silith in case he needs support. With a bronze medhelm and an iron chain body, you make it into the fortress. Downstairs, at the tile with a marking of an orb, you cast the charge orb spell on it and unlock the trapdoor. After running across the bridge, you kill 3 elite black knights to get a full set of elite black armor. Equipping this makes the rest of the knights unaggressive towards you. Going through the western door, you find a shortcut to the beginning of the dungeon that you can use anytime in the future, and through the northern door you find a hideout. Searching the wardrobe, you find some more elite black armor. At a table, you find a lobster with a restore potion. On another table, you find a lore rune, a death rune, and a strange teleorb. And next to the northern wall, you find a key rack that you take a key from. You then go to the prison cells and find Silith. You heal him with the food and restore potion. His mission here isn't complete yet. He needs to find the Dark Scroll and gather any intelligence available. You give him some of the extra armor, which allows him to safely leave the prison cell. Silith will study the maps on the southern wall while you deal with the Dark Scroll. He suggests that you plant a teleorb on him. In the southern wardrobe, you find the Dark Scroll robes and are able to go up the ladder. It turns out that the head wizard of the bad guys was Suruk Magis this whole time. He fights you. When he casts an earth blast, you counter with air, and if he does fire, you counter with water, and vice versa. When he launches an explosive, you have to use telegrab on it and high out kit. When he calls in a strong or agile warrior and they approach you, you have to cast either weaken or any binding spell on them accordingly. After you defeat Suruk Magis, you plant the orb on him. Silith has already reported back on your good work. He also was able to gather a lot of important intelligence. It seems that Lucian has allied with most of the Zamorakian organizations. You say that you planted a teleorb on Suruk, and Therisk believes that we can make a move on Lucian now. His secret base is on the western edge of the wilderness. When you're ready, Idria casts a spell that switches you and Suruk's positions, so now he's in the cell and you're in the headquarters again. Standing in the magic circle, you use the strange teleorb that you found on the table earlier, and this teleports you to the secret base just west of the wilderness. You climb to get on top of the Chaos Temple, and now have sight of Lucian, who summons an army of skeletons clad in rune armor. He recognizes you through the disguise and attacks. From the sidelines, the Alliance appears. Hazelmere observes you through a telescope, then Lucian quickly disposes of Duradel and Sloane. Hazelmere's crystal attack did something, but not enough, and his seed pod burst. It seems that his time has come. Lucian then quickly disposes of Syrisus, Gommel, Turiel, and Hazelmere. Mashna says that we must find where Lucian went, for Turiel and Duradel must be avenged. Haralak is going back to Falador, as your current weapons seem to be doing no damage to Lucian. He's become too powerful. It's more imperative than ever that he does not reach the Stone of Jas, but a little bit of good news is that Akrasay's informant saw Mavario entering the caves below Lumbridge Swamp with floating lights. This is where the Tears of Guthix are. You suggest that you disguise yourself as a Dark Scroll again. As this is the only plan you've currently got, they say you should do it. Mavario believes that the Stone of Jas is down the chasm. Your Sapphire Lantern needs to be enhanced, so he casts a light spell on it, and you descend. You search some skeletons, finding a hammer, a chisel, and a spade. With these you remove the water orb from one of the braziers, and the air orb from another. Nearby you find some rocks, which you can search using the spade. Within the crushed brazier you find an earth orb, and in the last rocks you get the red orb. In front of the 3 cavities, you see some chiseled blocks. You use the corresponding orb to match the element. When you've got the 4 elemental blocks, you crawl into the caves and place the blocks into the corresponding mechanisms. Lastly, you climb up and use a fire block in the middle, then inspect the stone cube. This opens up the skull, which you then climb into. Inside the next section, you find a skeleton with a sickle and a druid pouch. You can also restore your run energy and get a stamina effect by inspecting the brazier. You see a stone table with symmetrical glyphs on it. You can use the druid pouches on the spirits and get some herb lore ingredients that are going to be used on the corresponding statues. You can also cast a bloom with your sickle while standing on the vines to get vine flowers and add more charges to your pouch. For the defense statue, you use a Ranar and white berries and obtain the defense dolmen, which is a small statue which you place onto the central stone table. For hunter, you use an Avanto and ground kebbit tooth. For ranging, you use a dwarf weed and wine of Zamorak. For combat, you use a Haralander and goat horn dust. For strength, you use a Taramin and limpwort. For energy, you use a Haralander and a chocolate dust. For balance, you use a garlic, some silver dust, a Haralander and some red spider eggs. And for attack, you use a guam leaf and an eye of newt. Now that you've got 8 dolmens placed onto the central table, it unlocks the final section, opening the giant door that descends into the ground. You now walk through the gate to get to the final area. A balanced elemental that's protecting the stone and knows your whole past, present and future appears before you. He attacks with all 3 styles. If he's orange, you should protect and attack with ranged. If he's blue, you should protect and attack with mage. And if he's white, you should protect and attack with melee. After you defeat the balanced elemental, you can touch the Stone of Jas. V from the Fremenix was the first one to find it deep below the ice of Lunar Isle. Throughout time, some would use it for good, others would use it for destruction. The Dragonkin were bound to it long ago. It caused them unimaginable pain, but also granted them immense power. The only way to win is with the stone. Mavario catches up. He spent his whole life looking for this, so he won't let you stop him now. You explain that if Lucian gets the stone, the world would burn, but Mavario is convinced that he would be the one with power and not Lucian. You say you won't let him get the stone, so he says that he'll have to deal with you. But Lucian appears. He claims it's finally time for the Majorat to take their rightful place as the sole inheritors of Gielinor, with Lucian as their god. Anyone who stands in his way will be swept away. He commends your efforts to try and stop him, but he says that death always awaits. Now with the staff and the stone of Jas, no one can stop him, not even if Zamorak reappeared. You now enter a fight with 2 tormented demons and you have super buffed stats. If they do a slash attack, you must protect from melee. If they do a cone-shaped attack, you must protect range. And if they do a fireball attack, you must protect mage. Alternatively, you can let the Guardians of Armadyl chip away at them, and then you can deal the final blow at the end. Once you have defeated all the demons, you return to the White Knight's castle and explain what happened. Lucian has the stone, but this doesn't mean that you're all going to give up. The alliance between the Temple Knights, the Cruxical and the Guardians of Armadyl is strong, and they'll continue fighting for the common good and will try to strengthen their forces. When Lucian dares to rear his head again, they'll be ready. But for now, you can rest until the time is right, and you'll be the first to know. Lucian will be defeated, and the world will be safe once more. Meanwhile, deep within the Dragonkin lair, some of the Dragonkin that were in hibernation are now awakened. Sifaf, Sakurf, and Strisaf sense that the stone has been uncovered, so they're planning to bring pain and destruction once again. The Dragonkin will rise once more. Quest complete. You get 5 quest points, 80,000 thieving XP, 75,000 farming and herblore XP, 50,000 hunter XP, and access to the Guthixian temple. With all the quests complete, you go to Draenor village and talk to the wise old man. For 99,000 coins you get the quest cape and hood, thus completing the old school RuneScape quest lore series. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. This was a project that took 1,200 hours on my account, plus all the time writing and reading the scripts, editing the videos and the thumbnails. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. These videos are dedicated to everyone who wanted a quick, short way of learning what actually happens during the quests in old school RuneScape. It's been a great journey for me and I hope you had fun too. Thank you for watching the Grandmaster quest compilation. The next video will be a complete compilation of all 170 quests in the game.